Welcome in, Hail Varsity Postgame Show. I'm Ravi. That's Rico and Austin joining me as Nebraska falls to Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl, 44-22. It started fun. It started fun for a minute there. Like, first quarter was pretty cool. It got less cool after that.
That is true. 14-4. People forget this game was 14-14. That was a really fun time.
It was 14-7 at one point. Even.
That is true.
Nebraska was leading. Leads are fun. I don't know if you remember what those are like, but leading is fun. Being tied is also okay. 44-22, less fun. Significantly less fun.
Being close within a score is pretty fun. Leading by a score is even more fun. Stopping a team from passing the ball down the field consistently is pretty fun. Not letting a quarterback run for 30 plus yards is pretty fun. You know, there's a lot of fun things that Nebraska forgot how to fun.
All right, let's get all this out of the way because there's going to be people bringing up a lot of other type of comments and commentary. Second quarter obviously killed Nebraska, right? Our good friend Michael Bruns posted this, the second quarter only summary from Utah, Nebraska. 17-0 in favor of the Utes, 198 total yards to 17. The rushing attempts 16-6, 62 rushing yards to 1, 136 passing yards to 16. And then, of course, 10 first downs for Utah in that quarter as well. They possessed the ball for nearly twice the amount of time that Nebraska had, and Nebraska punted 3 times. Utah did not, all in the second quarter. Not great. Not a perfect performance there in the second, especially when you come off of what you did so well in the first. And truthfully, Ravi, maybe you have a better idea. I don't know what changed. I don't know if Utah figured it out. I don't know if it was the unscripted plays like we saw online. I don't know if it was a different type of shift or a different mentality, or if Nebraska just went lax. But whatever it was, it got away from them quick.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, and typically it wouldn't have been 2 full drives of scripted plays. Like, I mean, that isn't typically how it happens. I could be wrong there, but the second drive at the very least does not appear to have been scripted plays. I don't really buy into that narrative. And what I do kind of buy into is I thought Nebraska on the first couple drives did a much better job staying on schedule early with the running game and some of the other things they were doing, and that allowed them to get into rhythms, and that just didn't happen after that for whatever reason. My initial gut is that Utah really just decided, hey, it doesn't really seem like they want TJ Lateef to have to throw the ball a ton, so let's load up on the running game and just see what happens. And it's this TJ's 4th career start, his 5th game. I guess he played half the game against a USC, so it's 4.5 games there. Just didn't seem like he was in a place where he was ready to take on that type of responsibility. And I do think I am curious how much he practiced leading up to this. When I heard that this was the first week he was a full participant. I don't know if that's true or not. But he obviously did not look comfortable in terms of leading the team through the passing game. His numbers don't end up terrible. They're okay, not great throwing the ball, but it seemed like Utah said, hey, if you want to beat us through the air, you're more than welcome to. And Nebraska wasn't capable of that. And it got difficult at a certain point for Nebraska to run against what Utah was trying to do defensively. Now, they probably needed to be more persistent. Like, that being said, they probably needed to stick with it to a larger degree, since that was the thing that was working so well. And you probably see the same things that Utah does where TJ's struggling, but they probably also see him do well in some of these areas during practice and things like that. Now, when you give up 310 yards to Devin Dampier throwing the ball, like, maybe that's why he looks good in practice too. Like, secondary was pretty bad today. I know you're missing Deshaun Singleton. I know they played around with a bunch of different guys back there. I thought some looked better than others. I didn't think anybody looked particularly good for most of the game in the secondary, but obviously you're looking at 535 yards of total offense for Utah. I think it's a little funny sometimes because people are like, oh, the defense is dreadful. The defense, it's like, yes, that's why they fired their defensive coordinator. Like, that's why he got fired.
Well, and I think that's such a thing too in this game that, you see the tweets online that people were like getting frustrated that the defense wasn't getting the stops they did. Yeah. Did you not watch this season? Like,
Yeah.
what did you think was going to change over the course of 4 weeks? And I know we talked about this in the pregame, like what can change, it's alignment, it's assignments, all that other stuff. I mean, bad habits show more often, even if you're trying to correct them, when you've had bad habits being practiced and taught to you for so long, right? Like this is, you need a complete course correction, and you don't learn that in a 4-week span in the month of December. I thought that they actually did have some moments here and there, and especially in that first quarter. Listen, we can all remember the first 15 minutes. That felt great. Like the first 15 minutes, even though they were giving up touchdowns, there were some moments here and there that you're like, okay, you can see where effort, technique, alignment, and some guys were making some actual decent plays, like behind the line of scrimmage. RVP got his name called for the first time in a while. Like we hadn't heard that name since Northwestern. And then the second, third, and fourth quarters come about, and Utah just exposed all of those bad habits from Nebraska, and they went back to their old habits, and it just completely unraveled from there. That, at least that's what I took from it, especially post first quarter for the Nebraska defense.
Yeah, so the first quarter for both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, they were both, for Nebraska, they looked really good. You score 2 touchdowns, you only give up 1 touchdown, you force them to punt. That was all in the first quarter. That first quarter, you're up 14-7, feeling really good. The offensive line is moving bodies. The defensive line is creating havoc. They're stopping the run for the most part. The quarterback run wasn't killing them yet. And then, like you said, the second, third, and fourth quarters happened, and things kind of went awry for Nebraska on both sides of the ball. And there were, like you said, some instances where the Huskers looked pretty good on offense, on defense. On offense, it took until the fourth quarter for them to even get a first down, I believe. So that was really tough. But defensively, there were some flashes, some moments, but it was all overshadowed by giving up first downs on long third down attempts, or allowing the quarterback to just roam free, or letting a tight end beat your number one corner. Like I'm not allowing it. That was a great toss and a great catch. But it just a lot of frustrating things. And like you mentioned, it's some of the ugly things from the regular season rearing their ugly head.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably something I didn't give enough credit to for Utah is their particular offense is not a good one if you're struggling with eye discipline and run fitting and things like that, right? Like it is.
Listen, I'm in that boat too. This morning I said like it's going to be run left middle. I did not anticipate or really look back on how many times it was jet sweep this way, misdirection one way. They did incredible trying to get eyes in the wrong direction every time.
The movement was crazy.
And that's what they do. And I should have given more credence to that. I probably gave too much credence to it appears the head coaching situation did not bother them much at all. That appears to be clear. This is, I think, a really difficult team to play when Nebraska struggles with the things that they do defensively. And if they had played a team that doesn't put you in conflict as frequently, maybe it looks a little bit different. Maybe the improvements that they may or may not have made over the bowl prep would have been able to show, but that obviously isn't the case, right? I do feel like, even though I was optimistic this morning, like we did say on the tape, like it was on the table that like it would play out exactly how Vegas thought it was going to play out. Mm-hmm. And it was a little worse than that, obviously, but I don't know. Like I get frustrated because like, I don't enjoy this either. I don't know if people have this strange, like, because I'm optimistic, if people think like, oh, well, Ravi loves this and, you know, oh, you have a good time. Like, no one likes this. This sucks. I'm tired of watching it too. Okay. But there's a couple things that I know for a fact. Number one, all you fire Rule people, he's not going anywhere. For good or for bad, he's not. There's like $70 million of buyout money left on that contract. He's not going anywhere. Nebraska's not Texas A&M. They're not eating that. So whether you like him or not, either like if I know something's not changing, I either say, okay, I'm not going to be involved in that anymore, or I have to find a way to believe in the thing that's happening, right? Those are my only two options, because Rule is not going anywhere anytime in the near future. It's just not happening. Nebraska's not eating $70 million of contract. Even if they could, they wouldn't. And I don't know if they can. That's a huge number. That like there's 3 programs in the country that can eat that. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is if I don't think Rule's the guy and I know he's not getting fired, like, what good does it do me to just continue to be like, oh, well, he's never going to figure it out? I don't know, maybe. But here's the other thing I know. Nebraska hadn't finished over 500 in 2 consecutive years in over a decade, and now they have in a harder conference. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I get that this looks horrible. I hate it. Like, I can't tell you how long that third quarter felt. It felt like it lasted forever. Like, I kept looking up, and I'm like, it's still the goddamn third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not believe it every time I looked up. I'm like, nope, okay, we got to be into the fourth quarter by now. Still no. Every commercial break was just after a score. It wasn't after the quarter break. So I'm just sitting here, and I'm going, okay, well, here we go. We've got a long time of this to continue watching it. So I don't want there to be any misconception that I'm sitting here and being like, oh, yeah, this is, this is great, and they're heading in the right direction. This is also unequivocally the best 2-year stretch they've had in over a decade. So what am I supposed to do with those two things? The last 3 weeks, god-awful, hated it, right? Or last 3 games. It's been, a month and a half, right? But the previous decade before the last 2 years, also god-awful, hated it. Yeah. So what am I supposed to do with that, right? Well, those are the two sides that are competing right now that are, by the way, you're starting a true freshman quarterback all over again. That's a factor that we just seem to conveniently ignore because we thought TJ Lateef looked good against Houston Christian. So, he's not a true freshman anymore. Like, what are we talking about? Like, yes, that's not an excuse for anything that happened in terms of the defense and the execution and just letting the wheels fall off and not showing fight in certain games. I thought they did better today in terms of showing fight, but not good enough, obviously, and getting down when and kind of rolling over a little bit when adversity hits. But at the same time, a true freshman quarterback does matter. There's a reason Utah just said, we're going to see if this guy can beat us with his arm. And it's because he was a true freshman quarterback. And there's a lot of that in there. And so, yes, I hated the last 3 games as much as everyone else did, probably more. But I'm also very well aware that, I do think this program is in a better spot than it was 4 years ago. And so I don't know what to do with those two things being true at the same time.
So to hit on a couple of those notes from what you're saying, I want to start where you finished at, because looking back at the last 3 blowouts, yes, I get it. Like, it's frustrating. Obviously, like you said, it's not happy to be in this place, whatever.
And several of those people got fired, for the record. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
The last 3 teams that Nebraska played in these blowouts and everything, when they were starting a true freshman quarterback and they had younger players on their roster. And again, I understand Nebraska has older players that start and are in positions and all that other stuff. Nebraska played 2 of the oldest teams in terms of classmen ranks and all that other stuff, in terms of 2 deep rosters, in Iowa and Penn State in the Big Ten. And Utah, notably very old team. This is a very, very senior, junior heavy, even transfer laden team that had a lot of experience. And again, I'm not trying to make an excuse for that, but when you look at the youth and what they had to kind of go through and struggle with, if you were to reverse time machine Utah, who knows what this game looks like if it's truly, same age difference between the two and where their careers are. On what you're saying from the beginning, Ravi, comparison is a thief of joy. That is the toughest part of this entire argument, is because Nebraska and all of us across college football are looking at what this long rebuild is so far. And it is, because this year was, again, as frustrating as it can be, a 1-game improvement from the year before in terms of regular season wins. Obviously, the record finishes out the same at 7-6 from a year ago. You lose a bowl game instead of win it, but yet you still finish 7-5. You do get a clean non-conference slate as well for Nebraska. Yeah, you lose your starting quarterback halfway through the year, and who knows how that kind of changes everything. But because of the other success across college football, it's so hard for the Nebraska fan base and even the national pundits that want to see what's happening with Rule and peg him for the year 3 success in the preseason and ask the question as to why it's being so slow, because of all the other rebuilds that are happening around Nebraska, specifically in its own conference. That's the toughest part. And that's what you have to sell. And the only people that believe in this process will be Troy Dannon and Matt Rule, until either they decide that the process is not worth continuing, or if the process has finally proceeded and they're at the point in which they thought they were getting to. The process, to me, and the progress is still very much there and very much real. And I think you can still very much see that. And I mean, we saw 2 running backs today make very big impact plays. And I'll point out individuals. Yeah, whatever. I know the final result wasn't perfect, but the individuals that we had huge question marks coming into this game that said, oh, who's going to replace Emmett Johnson? A Heisman Trophy candidate, a guy that ran for more yards since Amir Abdullah. I would say the 2 running backs have me more confident going into 2026 about, okay, I feel good about where the running back room is. And if they add more pieces, great. I love adding bacon to my, chicken wrap. That'll be perfect. That's exactly what I want to see, I hear everything you're saying too, because it's so frustrating because it's not 8-4. It's not 9-3. It's not 10-2. It's not something you can squeeze and hold and say, there it is. That's the success we've been looking for. But it's progress nonetheless. And you can call me an optimist and you can say that I'm delusional and everything else. But until you realize that the Nebraska standard is slowly rebuilding and you can't look outside the windows of the car that you're already in, you're seeing everybody speed down you by the highway, you're never going to catch up to them. You'll never catch up. You got to be able to keep on your track and just keep plowing forward. And listen, if progress starts to go backwards, that's when I think more questions can be asked.
Absolutely. And listen, I'm guilty of this too, but I think one of the biggest problems and I think Rule's tried to intimate this without just throwing people under the bus just entirely. But I think one of the biggest problems that we have as a fan base, and again, myself included, because I was guilty of thinking this as well, is that we were closer to being competitive than we were over the last decade or so. And honestly, longer than that. I remember, you want to go back to even like the end of Bo's tenure. So we're talking 15 years ago at this point. I felt unequivocally when Nebraska still winning 9 games that they were closer to 6 than they were to 11 or 12, right? Like they were dancing kind of through raindrops even at that point. Now that team had some things that this team could use in terms of their mentality and their toughness and things like that. So that's why they got to their 9 still instead of 6 or 7. They were also playing in a worse league, so that helps. But I think we all thought, it goes, I know we make fun of it, but it goes back to that best 3-9 team of all time and things like that, where you're competitive against every team but you just don't quite get it done. I think we've had this misconception and maybe from my part, even delusion that Nebraska was closer to competing before Rule got here than they actually were. I don't know if we appreciate how much things eroded, and not just eroded, but I also don't know if we appreciate how much infrastructure other teams were building while Nebraska was eroding from what was the status quo even then. So not only do you then have to catch up, but then you also have to try and get an advantage somewhere again. And Nebraska didn't have that. Now, Rule seems to think he's in a place where that is the infrastructure and the personnel departments and all that's in place now. We'll see. Right? We don't until the wins start to show up, we don't know. But what I will say is I think we were much further away from being competitive than we thought when Rule was hired, which makes this harder to swallow now because we weren't realistic about the situation we were inheriting. It's like if you bought a house and you go in and you're like, oh, it needs some cosmetic updates and, maybe some new appliances and we'll paint it and things like that. And you get in there and there's like, oh, there's mold down to the studs. We have to take this thing. We have to gut this thing and start over. Right. Like you kind of get into the house thinking one thing and then you actually end up having to do something else. And it is unbelievably frustrating. Listen, this is all day, every day for us. I get it. Like this is as frustrating of a 3-game stretch as there has been for a while, because going into that 3-game stretch, there was actual real hope of like this thing could have gone very differently. Like 9 wins, including the bowl, felt very much on the table pre-Penn State, right? And to now have this be 7-6 and the way the last 3 ended up especially is a whole other mess that just brings this emotional baggage. I will say, and I interrupted you saying this earlier and I apologize, but a lot of the people responsible for 2 of those 3 games got fired.
Yes.
Right? Like for the people that want heads and blood and their pound of flesh, a lot of those people got fired.
You got it.
Like John Butler's not here anymore.
Yeah.
Terry Braden's not here anymore.
John Butler can't hurt you anymore.
Donovan Rail is not here anymore. Like people got fired for the way the season ended. That's a real thing that happened that it seems like we just ignore.
Yeah.
And like, yes, I was optimistic that maybe 4 weeks with Jeep Wade and Phil Snow, simplifying things would lend to improvement. And it seemed, at least for a little while on the offensive line, that it did. But the fact is, Phil Snow is not your defensive coordinator next year. Your defensive coordinator hasn't started yet. Like, whatever you saw today wasn't part of what you'll see next year.
Yeah, the people who were commenting on like our Hail Varsity content, and they were just saying like, "Oh, what is Rob Orich's role today? Spectator?" Like,
yeah, he was there. He was on the sideline. Like, he was there to just see. He was there to see and watch the players and be like, "Okay, this is what I'm working with."
He had the same impact on today's game as Emmett Johnson. He was on the sideline and like just there. Like, that is, like, that's it. And so I understand. And those, hear me out. Those people rightfully got fired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't have. For the way the season ended, heads needed to roll, and they did. My point is, Rule's not going to be one of them, if for no other reason because of the contract, but also because, again, this is the best 2-year stretch Nebraska's had in a decade.
Yeah.
I hate how we feel right now. I do. And there's no way around that. There's also no way around this is the most successful 2-year stretch in a decade for Nebraska football. And I think that's the thing we're actually the most mad about, is that we are at a place where back-and-back 7-6 actually is real progress. And that makes us so mad, myself included. But like, that's the thing we're actually mad about. Not that it's 7-6 in back-to-back years.
Mm-hmm.
We're mad at how it looked in the last 3 games. Totally understandable. But we're mad that this actually is progress. And we're sitting here, and you brought up, the Signetti in the room, the elephant-sized Signetti in the room, of just being like, hey, we know that it is possible to do it that fast. But to be fair, we actually only know it's possible by Curt Signetti.
Yeah. He is literally the 1%. He is not the standard. He is the 1%.
Never happened for anyone else like this.
Like, it happened the 1 year for Michigan State, and then it went off a cliff. Signetti has shown that it's worked for 2 years, and this is the only time it's ever happened.
Yeah. And I mean, we said it this morning too, that I refuse to believe, and this was something that I tried to get MRI on, and I think I might have even asked you guys about it when we were talking about it before this game ever kicked off, and everyone was kind of, hedging their bets on how much Nebraska was going to lose by and everything else, that people were going to be frustrated by a result like this no matter what. Like, if Nebraska lost by 3, if they lost by 30 or 300, this is exactly what was going to happen no matter what. And yet no one wants to realize every other factor that was coming into this game, pre-game, post-game, everything in between. I mean, literally the guy that I picked to maybe have a standout performance was on a scooter before the game even started. So, like, there were a lot of other factors that came into it. I don't make excuses for that, but I will say that if you think that this 1-game sample size in which Utah definitely outperformed Nebraska, and holy cow, newsflash for everybody, Utah was a better team than Nebraska all season long. Like, I don't know if you guys just
the number 15th ranked team in the country.
Like, holy cow, an 11-win team beat a 7-5 team. Color me shocked. Like, that's insane. But it's just one of those things that I don't understand the visceral reaction that comes out of this when we have watched Nebraska throughout this entire season, and you can see where the success has been, and everyone agreed with some of the moves that came on the offseason, yet they still come back and complain about the same things that were the issues in their bowl game, in which they are choosing to correct moving forward. And listen, I'll say this. I'll give a little bit of nugget, and I know you and DB hate this, Ravi, and you're going to hate this part of this Hail Varsity postgame. I get where the Fire Rule people are coming from, not jumping off the boat right now myself. But listen, there's only so many more changes coaching-wise and on the assistant staff you can make until the finger starts to point back at you. I don't know. I don't believe that we are there yet, but I understand where that sentiment starts to come from. And I know that that's something that people start to ask the question of, is how many other people get fired before it goes to the one person who makes the hires? And truthfully, I think you will know next year. You will know the difference in that 4th year. And I refuse to say that you can definitively say that there has not been progress after this 3rd season.
Can I say, like, the whole, like, everybody wants everybody fired and you want everybody's head on a silver platter? Like, thinking of the 3 teams that Nebraska played to end the season that they got blown out by, I understand Penn State is kind of the outlier there because they did fire their head coach, but Iowa and Utah, outside of Whittingham retiring and leaving and not coaching in the bowl game, these 2 teams, Iowa and Utah, have had the same coaching staffs, it feels like, for the last 30 years. Almost like these are teams that they have bad seasons. Guess what? They run it back and they know what they're going to do. They know how they want to do things. And that's how they improve themselves, is by fixing things internally. They're not going out of their way to go out and change things and fire somebody and go and get somebody. And I understand that maybe it's completely asinine to think that for Nebraska because of how bad things have gotten, or how bad things were, and how bad things looked on those sides of the ball, or those rooms where Nebraska ended up firing their coaches. But when you look at successful teams, aside from like in Alabama when Nick Saban was there, and maybe Ohio State, but even then they've had the same coaching staff for the most part under Ryan Day. Like, they keep those coaching staffs around. They bring their players in, they coach them up, they get them to play better, and they continue to succeed. Like, again, I understand that it's completely different with Nebraska because they've been bad, but it feels like they fired a coach or 2 every single year, and it's hard to make progress when your players are sitting there trying to learn something new every single offseason. You can't get better at something if you're learning something completely new.
So somebody in the chat brought up, and I think this is something we probably don't talk about in terms of the frustration with this year enough, and that is the Rule year 3 thing, right? That everybody kind of bought into, and yeah, there it is, Funky Giblets.
Sorry, Rico.
It's so okay. The year 3 hype and things like that. There's a couple of things that I want to put in context here with the year 3 jump for Matt Rule, and I'll point the finger at myself first. Also bought into it. Okay, so that's also on me. I'm going to give you the record of Temple the 4 years before Matt Rule took over. Okay. 9 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins, 4 wins. They got fired. He took over the next year. So that is 9, 8, 9, 4. What is that? 17, 20. That's 30 wins in 4 years before Matt Rule took over. Baylor, before Matt Rule took over. I'm going to go back even a little further. 10 wins, 8 wins, 11 wins, 11 wins, 10 wins, 7 wins. That's 6 years, 4 of which had 10-win seasons before he took over at Baylor. My point being, so in the 3 directly before, you're at basically 30 wins there, or the 4 directly before, you're at 38 wins before he took over as well. So my point being, and as we all know, the 4 years that before he took over at Nebraska, we're sitting at 15 wins, somewhere 16 wins, however many Frost had in his time here. So my point being is it was probably misguided to believe in a 3rd-year jump at this place, because frankly, Temple and Baylor, as horrible as those situations were, Baylor worse, were in much better football condition before Matt Rule took over than Nebraska was. They had won significantly more. Like, let that sink in for a minute. Temple and Baylor had won significantly more football games than Nebraska did when Matt Rule took over those specific programs. So it would lead you to believe, and I know the landscape is different now, so you can do things faster or differently or whatever, but that would lead me to believe there was actually more work to be done to get Nebraska into that spot. So I will take blame on this for buying into 3rd-year hype. And I think Matt Rule probably needs to take some blame, because he talked a little bit about the year 3 jump at the beginning of the season as well. But the fact of the matter is the situations that he inherited, Nebraska was the least winning situation he inherited. And I don't think we talk about that very much, if at all. And so there was way more work to be done, in my opinion.
Sorry, I just saw the Rogers comment. How many wins did Indy have before Sig took? Signetti's a unicorn. there has been nothing like Curt Cignetti. That I don't think there will ever be anybody like Curt Cignetti again. I don't understand how he's doing it, aside from bringing his entire team from James Madison, who was an extremely successful program, over with him to Indiana. And those guys are good football players, and he's a good football coach. Like, it just happened. I don't think it'll happen again. There is no other Cignetti. You can't compare Rule to Cignetti. You can't compare any new head coach that's taking over a program. Comparing them to him is only going to get you upset and disappointed by whatever results happen.
I think the best argument you can make, though, in this argument that we're having, which is, I mean, I understand this is the Hail Varsity postgame of like a blowout. So like, what else are you supposed to talk about? But like, if you look at all of the people who want to fire Rule right now, right, and they are arguing about no progress, about how it's gone stagnant, all that sort of stuff. Yes, Nebraska can compare this to their past recent history of firing coaches. Is Rule, so the next coach, let's say Rule does get fired tomorrow, right? Like something crazy. Rule gets fired tomorrow. Nebraska's in a much better spot than in the previous 3 regimes that preceded him. Right? Like Rule has, I mean, that's a realistic part of this conversation, right? Like Rule has rebuilt Nebraska to be a better job than when Scott Frost left it, than when Mike Riley left it. Bo, probably not. That's probably the best, like, that's probably the last end. But I mean, that's a decade. Like, we're talking a decade of putrid Nebraska football. And Rule, again, if this whole scenario worked out and the fans with pitchforks had their way and they tossed him over the boat, they would still be a better job than when the past 2 coaches prior to Rule would take the job. So in that sense, that's progress. I don't know how else, what else do you have to say to phrase it? Like,
yeah, I think so. For what it's worth, Indiana also had 15 wins. Nebraska and Indiana had the same amount of wins between Cignetti and when Rule took over. So, like, yes, Cignetti's a unicorn. I don't know what else to do. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, he is the biggest outlier in the history of college football, full stop. Like, that's the truth. So comparing anyone to Cignetti, like, I'm over it. I'm not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know me, I don't even like the guy. And
we just bring it up to get content out of you mostly. So
yeah, I understand that. But like, you can't sit here and just say it's not a real thing. Like, there's not another one to go hire. And I swear to God, if Nebraska had hired the James Madison coach, we'd have burned Memorial Stadium to the ground.
Yes.
And you know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's true.
If they fire Frost and they go after James Madison's head coach, Curt Cignetti, or however old he is, people would have lost their mind. Like,
yeah,
everybody made fun of
old JMU coach. We would have burned the stadium to the ground, and you know it. So don't come, like, unless you're willing to take those kind of risks, you can't live with the fact that you didn't get the reward from it. Like, that's not stop it. I'm done having the Cignetti conversation when we're talking about Nebraska. He's football Jesus, football unicorn, whatever you want to call him, and no one else is. This has literally never happened in the history of college football before, and it's probably not going to happen again. Now, the people that are talking about, need to embrace the portal and things like that, like, yes, let's have that conversation, right? Let's talk about things that are actually going to happen and can change or could happen, right? Because I can guarantee you Rule's not getting fired. Already covered that. But what might happen? So what else is there to talk about?
Yeah.
He's fired multiple people responsible for the way things have looked. And now you can focus on the roster, right? I imagine there's going to be some reinforcements from San Diego State's defense, and hopefully including that Chambliss, the outside linebacker, who's really, really good. Like, there's Georgia Tech and South Carolina offensive linemen just coming out of our ears, just headed over to Lincoln. And like hopefully that's the case. Hopefully there is, I like Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey a lot. I thought that showed today. I mean, Nelson had 136 yards of total offense today. Mosey had 80 more on just 11 touches. Like, both those guys had good games. If you roll into the season with those guys as primary options, that's great. Give me a couple more for depth. Like, let's roll. Like, bring in some quarterbacks for competition and let the best man win. I'm like, let's talk about actual solutions here, because Rule's not getting fired. So like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that doesn't do me any good to exhaust that conversation.
All right. Well, I'll exhaust you in a different conversation then. And I don't want to get into necessarily like Dana Holgerson and all the other stuff, because that's a rerun of the same tread of the same tire for what we've been talking about. What needs to come in at quarterback from what you saw from TJ Lateef over now a 4-game sample? Like we have officially seen, I think, enough of TJ Lateef that you can make a full assessment of what he is as a quarterback, as a player. And again, I've said this 100 times, many times, that whether it's internal, they definitely know Lateef's either limitations or what he can be as a quarterback to his max capacity. And if they were putting safety, railings and making sure that he had the baby guard on and all that other stuff on the offense, then that's a part of it, right? That they wouldn't unleash him completely. So what is that next step? I think a lot of people have agreed it's probably bringing in a quarterback at this point. Is it to compete for Lateef, or is it to essentially be quarterback one?
So I will, the only part of that I'll disagree with is they might know what Lateef was capable of today. I still don't think they know what Lateef looks like next year, right? Everybody talks about the greatest jump you make is from your freshman to sophomore year. We saw the development Dylan had from his freshman to sophomore year. So I don't think they know what Lateef is going to look like next year. So I'll start there. I think they like his talent a lot. Obviously, he wasn't there yet. Wasn't at a place where he was able to do what they needed him to do today or in the last few games, right? So outside of UCLA, Northwestern. But I think what I think happens at quarterback is I don't think they're going to bring in a guy as the starter, right? Like, I just don't think Rule wants to play that game again. I don't think whether you think Lateef is the guy or not, I don't think they're playing the quarterback savior game again. I don't think they want to pony up $4 million for one guy. And not to tease anything here, but I've been working with some analytics guys at Hurrdat on a return on investment calculator on NIL quarterbacks. And Dylan was one of the worst in the country this year. There is a sweet spot that I'll kind of describe more in detail, but there's a sweet spot where it's like, you probably need to spend money on the rest of your roster rather than just loading up at quarterback. It's oddly a very similar argument I made with NFL teams in the offseason as well. But I'll roll that out later in January once we get into portal season a little bit more. But Dylan was one of the worst returns on investments in the country over the last 2 years, based on his production and what he was reportedly paid. So I don't think they want to go down that road again. I think you're going to bring in guys that they think are capable, whether they were starters at their last places or guys that they like their talent or like their tape or wanted to bring in that chose other places in the first place. I don't think they're going to bring in a guy that is like the de facto or anointed starter. I think it'll be a competition. Now, if they bring in two guys for a competition or if they bring in one guy and he competes with Lateef, I don't know. I actually think that they might bring in 3 quarterbacks. I think you're looking at least one guy to compete with Lateef. Well, I mean, look at the room. There's nobody. It's just Lateef, basically. Like, there's nobody left.
Yeah.
I mean, after today, yes.
Transferring. Graham Stad's a senior. He's going to be on the coaching staff next year.
There is no 26 quarterback in the class. There's no young freshman.
Yeah, you're right.
You're basically taking one guy to compete directly with Lateef, at least, assuming Lateef is part of the competition, okay? It's easier if I assume that way, but it may not be the case, right? So one guy, direct starter competition. That's number one. Number 2 is somebody to replace basically a 2026 class quarterback. So probably a guy that was a true freshman this year, and that they look at as a developmental type quarterback. And then someone probably halfway in between there. I don't know if that's a Gramstad type, or like in terms of like a super experienced guy like that you don't necessarily want to hand the reins to, but if he needs to take over for a game or two, you feel pretty comfortable because they know the offense and think
super emergency quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, think of those like old school, like think of those Texas Tech guys that didn't play until they're 50 or seniors or whatever. Like those types of guys where it's like, hey, this guy's gonna be a coach someday. He's really smart, knows the offense, will get the ball out on time, things like that. That is sort of the group I think you're looking at is direct competition, young guy to replace the the 2026 class quarterback, and then someone's sort of in the middle between those two guys. I really like, I know people are like, well, what about like Aiden Childs? And that name has been thrown out there and stuff. I don't think Aiden Childs would go into that situation. And I don't think Nebraska, in terms of not being guaranteed playing time, and I don't think Nebraska is interested in guaranteeing anyone anything, because I think that's been part of the problem with, like, it's really hard to say, hey, everybody has to fight for everything they get, and like this is a 100% like meritocracy, and if you don't earn it, you're not playing. They do that in certain areas, but it's really hard to look at the quarterback room and everybody knew, like, that's the starter the day he signed, right? Like, it's also impossible to turn down a legacy 5-star if he decides he wants to come here.
Yes.
So like, you're kind of in a weird spot there, but I do think that was part of the problem, is the most visible person on that team didn't really have to earn his way. Like, he didn't. Like, as soon as he walked into the door, he was the starter. And so, because let's be honest, Heinrich Harburger was not going to start last year. That just wasn't going to happen. That was not on the table. So I think that is something they are not interested in repeating. So whatever it looks like, I would bet heavily that there is a real quarterback competition next year. I think they'll spend on guys they like. I think they'll spend on high profile guys, in terms of guys that were highly touted, or at least highly talented coming out of high school. It wouldn't surprise me if one of the guys they bring in is like a highly productive small school guy that maybe wasn't highly touted, but I think they'll bring in kind of a variety of guys at the quarterback spot, and whoever wins the competition wins the competition. You go from there.
I like that. And to kind of push back on somebody commenting on your talk, is saying that's stupid. Indiana, Miami, so many others do it that way. Those teams are quarterbacks away at the time of, like, however their team was built. They needed a quarterback, and that was really all they needed. Nebraska isn't a quarterback away from winning 9 games or 10 games or hell, even 8 games. Like, they need other pieces. You can't spend all of your. This is like if you're playing Madden on your PlayStation or your Xbox, you're not going to go drop $40 million on your quarterback and not get anything else, no offensive line to protect him and no defensive players, because then you run out of money and you're sitting there with a 99 overall quarterback and absolutely nothing else. Like, Nebraska has pieces on this roster. I think they have some really good players on this roster, but they are not just one quarterback away where they can go drop all of their money on one person to then go out and win X amount of games.
Well, then I'll add on to that too, because there's another part of this conversation that is that the transfer portal, it opens up 2 ways, right? In just a few days, you will know what the state of how the program is built under Matt Rule, with how many players that we feel as a fan base positive about, or would miss, or have significant, impact if they left it via the transfer portal. You will know that in the next few days. Obviously, the quarterback has already moved on. That has been announced. He was not available as it was, even if he was going to be healthy for this game, as it turned out, whatever. But nonetheless, there are plenty, like you said, there are plenty of pieces. There are plenty of positive players that if they chose to put their name in, they would get a lot of good programs that would want them to be a part of their teams. And I think that I would be surprised if you see a couple of guys, high-profile names for Nebraska's roster, or guys that performed well today and then this last stretch of the year, that if they enter the portal, I'd be very surprised to see those names go in. And again, that's why I think it's not a quarterback away. There's still more pieces to go. There's still more development to do, and there's other things to include onto Nebraska's future roster plans. But the cupboard is not completely bare, and I refuse to believe that that is the case.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for me, it's not even about the money so much as it is the, like, mentality of how you put your football team together, right? Like, I think it's, somebody said, hey, we've got to, got to go get linemen on both sides of the ball. Agree, 100%. Like, I think it's about philosophically how you want to play football, how you want your team to think, how you want your team to act. And I think that just going and trying to find, just handing someone a job and saying, hey, this is our guy, this is the quarterback, and not having everything else in place is, I don't think, a recipe for success at this point in where Nebraska's at. Like, Indiana and Miami are in different places, whether it's because of the rest of their roster or just where they are as a program. And I think it's much more, and Nebraska fans don't like this, but like when Iowa has been good, they have all their ducks in a row and they have all these pieces, right? And then when they take that extra step and become really, really good, it's when they have a quarterback who's at all competent, right? Like that's the difference. When Michigan, this is an example, Nebraska fans will like a little bit more. When Michigan went from being just pretty good to a college football playoff team to a national champion is when they were able to go from Cade McNamara to J.J. McCarthy. Like Cade McNamara was just a guy at quarterback and the rest of the roster was really good. J.J. McCarthy was a very good college football quarterback that puts you over the top. So like, to me, it's about philosophy on how you're putting the team together, not about, hey, does Nebraska, like, I think Nebraska at this point has the money to do both. I think it doesn't send the right message in terms of what you're trying to put what you want your team to be. Because like how many of these messages in here? No, Carl Isaiah Hunter was hurt today. He did not play.
Yeah.
How many messages in here we're talking about Nebraska being soft, no passion, no effort, things like that? That's what I'm talking about. When you hand any guy a job, it's hard to instill those things in everyone else. When you're a program that hasn't won enough to just say, hey, this is what we do, this is who we are, right? When you're a program that hasn't won enough, especially recently, to do that, then it's really hard to hand any one guy a job and have it be cool with the rest of the team. Like, if that's not how you operate with the rest of the team, then it's a very undermining thing to do at your most visible position. So that's what it is for me, more than the money, more than anything else, is until you're at a place where a difference-making quarterback actually does make a difference, then you have to go about that spot in terms of a meritocracy the same way you do every other spot. That's why I think it'll be a competition in the offseason to see who the quarterback is. And yes, they're going to bring in multiple guys in that room. And I think whoever's the best man, they're going to let that guy win the job. And that's where it's going to end. I really don't think it's going to be hey, this guy is awesome. We're going to pay him $4 million. Here's the job. Like, I just don't think it's going to go that way.
Yeah. I point Ravi.
Hit the nail on the head. I don't know. You win that one.
Like, that's just not where Nebraska's at. Like, that's not where Nebraska's at. And again, it goes back to my point before where I think we have a hard time, myself included. I'm putting myself in this group. I think we have a hard time. Like, I think we have a hard time admitting to ourselves where Nebraska was truly at and where Nebraska truly has been in terms of how far away we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
Or how far away we've actually been, right? Like, I'm optimistic to a fault, and sometimes it is a fault, right? It makes me not see certain things, or I see things in the most favorable light possible. Like, I see the defensive line, and I go, hey, like, I think Keona Davis is really good, and I do think he's really good. I think Riley Van Poppel's really good and can be really good, but I tend to overlook, well, he took a year off, then that probably is not the easiest thing to just jump back in, right? There's the positive of it. There's the negative of it too, right? I look at Williams Winnera. I go, that guy's super talented. I think that defensive line is going to be good. But yeah, he played 4 games last year, redshirted, and produced nothing at Missouri last year. So we're basically starting from scratch, right? So like, that's the give and take of the optimism is like, yes, I do think those things are possible. But again, we saw it today with the Utah team where I'm like, hey, yeah, I think X, Y, and Z, and I didn't give enough consideration to, like, Utah puts you in conflict all the time. That's the thing Nebraska really struggles with defensively. That probably didn't get fixed in 4 weeks, even if the effort maybe did. And I didn't look at today and be like, oh, the effort was definitely fixed. I thought it was better, but I didn't look at today, and even the thing that I thought could be fixed wasn't fixed. But I didn't give enough consideration to the thing that wasn't fixable, and that was, hey, you got to have guys with better eye discipline to be able to handle this particular type of offense that is going to that's going to put better defenses than Nebraska in constant conflict all day long. So like, that's the hard pill to swallow here is this entire time Nebraska's been further away than we thought they were. And I think they're closer now, but probably still not as close as we want them to be.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Ravi, you have done a lot of ranting. Let's give you a break. Let's build off positives, right? Because we mentioned just slightly about the running backs looking good. And I thought outside of a hip drop tackle, which I did not appreciate from Utah on Isaiah Mosey, Mekhi Nelson, when he broke through in that first touchdown run, I woke up the dog and Dr. Fiance. It was very embarrassing in my home. But, we had to do it. And then 14-7 at one point, I was pretty impressed. And Latif looked good. That second play calling drive, all the Dana naysayers and whatnot, that was a Dana Holgerson absolute chili cook-off champion type of play calling drive right there. I also thought guard, center, guard, outside of personally a phantom holding call on Justin Evans in the second half, which again, the game was out of it. It didn't matter. Guard, center, guard was elite play. And maybe that's not credit to Jeep Wade. Maybe that's just how good and talented that core position is. Tackles could have played better, especially on the outside, on the right side too, gave up too many pressures. But I thought we did see some things that lend you to feeling confident going into the next year, because these are guys that are coming back. We're not talking about, okay, well, yeah, sorry, we're not going to be seeing any more of Dane Key, and he had 200 yards receiving. What a great, send off and all that stuff. Would have loved to send him out the right way. Would have loved to send Heinrich Harburg out the right way. All that great stuff, right? But a lot of guys that you saw either have success or continue to get better as the season progressed played out today. And a name that, we can bring up here because he led the defense in tackling. Caleb Benning had 13 total tackles today. He's the only defender in double-digit tackles. He had 4 solo tackles. He had the unfortunate circumstance with Dampier, who decided to slide because he saw the West Side tape, didn't want to get his head taken off. But nonetheless,
he knew. Dampier knew.
Listen, he knew what was coming, all right? And even Caleb tried to, lay off it, but it is what it is. Vincent Shavers, coming back unless something happens, 9 tackles. Donovan Jones, he got tied up. He missed a couple on a 4th and 1, but still 8 tackles. And then you even keep going down the list. I mean, Justin Rhett, very first start, had played sparingly. He was the 3rd safety. He had 6 tackles in this game. I think Donovan had a pass break up there too. And no, they were not perfect. But wouldn't you rather have the guys making plays and getting better be your freshman, redshirt freshman, and sophomore? Because if we're sending out and we feel this way about the juniors and seniors that we aren't seeing play, at least you can build your confidence up and say, listen, they're getting so many reps and they can only get better, because that's what they're setting them up for success for in the future. I know it's not the end result that we wanted. That's kind of what we've been talking about. But nonetheless, there are so many things that you can take positively from how Nebraska performed in spots in this game that you can start to feel a little bit better about where they move into the offseason, obviously barring that all these pieces stay in place and stay at Nebraska.
And then if you add in, whoever decides to transfer in, hopefully a decent amount from San Diego State, who are close with, obviously, the defensive coordinator, know his defense, you'll be able to add those pieces to an already, like you just said, a pretty exciting, potentially, defensive team coming, or defensive team, just defense coming back. There's a lot of pieces there that if they can make some sort of take some sort of steps up in their game with the new defensive coordinator, then that'll be some really fun things to watch going forward. But yeah, I mean, there was a ton of young guys out there making plays, and this is what we talked about in the pregame. I mean, look, on the offensive side of the ball, you got a really tall receiver in Quinn Clark, a redshirt freshman, who I know he didn't have a ton of catches, but the 2-point conversion in the end zone where he didn't really high point it, but still strong hands to get down there, rip the ball away and score. He's getting out in space, running around, using those long legs. There's some youth, some young pieces out there who, barring hitting the transfer portal, it could be very exciting next season. I'm not saying, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and be like, they're going to be great next year, right. But there's some exciting pieces.
But there's also, and I know this will caveat a little bit of what I just said, but there's also a part of this too, that you are bringing in a new defensive coordinator and all the gripes and everything. And if people want to be upset that some of the guys maybe weren't perfect in position and they made some mistakes, I'll acknowledge that. You have a new defensive coordinator coming in. He could come in and just say, these guys ain't good enough. And they may move on. And if that's the case, that's why you bring in a new coach, because maybe it's development, maybe it's the talent that's there. Whatever the case is, if they don't fit in with what's moving forward, doesn't matter how they play today, it could completely reset and be changed. That's, again, everyone in this chat that if anyone even wants to say, like, look at the 2026 schedule, we can't, because this team is going to look dramatically different in 3 days and in 30 days before we can even make an evaluation as to what Nebraska and its opponents look like heading into next year.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that is encouraging, one of the biggest thing that's encouraging is, like, this is what Rob Orich does, is he comes in and your defense gets dramatically better the next year. Like, that's why he was hired. Mm-hmm. Like, he was hired because he has a history of quick turnarounds. Like, whether that happens at Nebraska or not, I don't know, but that's what he was brought in for. That's what his history dictates. So, like, that's a major factor, I think, going into next year. And I think there will be, there's obviously guys from San Diego State and other places which San Diego State was one of the best defenses in the country this year, by the way, and even adjusted for opponents and strength of schedule. But you're going to have pieces that I think likely will follow him from San Diego State. You'll have pieces from other places in the country that'll come to Nebraska as well. And, like, I think the defense will look dramatically different from last year, and hopefully the pieces that I like and not even that I like if they're not good enough and I like them, then, like, okay, fine, go. Like, that is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'll get over it. There's guys that I like that I'm just like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen, and that's totally fine. I would rather see Nebraska win. And, like, if Rob Orich just comes up and he calls me up, because, I'm sure he has my phone number, and says, Ravi, like, Hurrdat Davis just doesn't fit my system. It's not it. Like, I'll be bummed. I think he's good, but, like, that's the call. You've got a history of this and being good at this. Like, best of luck to Keona Davis at his next spot. Like, that is what it is, right? And so it's incredibly frustrating right now. And also, most of the people that were responsible for most of the things that we're frustrated about have already been fired.
Yes.
Like, that's just, I think I just keep.
You're just going to keep reiterating that. Keep mentioning it.
The way
it's
people
necessary.
The way people are talking, it seems like they have forgotten that. It seems necessary to remind them that most of the things you're mad about, because people keep bringing up the last 3 games. It's not just today. Today's the most understandable. Utah's freaking good. Like, I don't, like, today is the most understandable of those 3 losses.
Utah is the best team that they played all season.
Not that makes it okay still, but it is the most understandable of the 3. The ones that you're really mad about, Penn State and Iowa, those guys have been fired already. Mm-hmm. Unless you're talking about Rule. And like I said, he's not going anywhere. So either find out a way to find some level of optimism, or don't watch for the next year or however many years until they either start winning or Rule gets fired, because I'm tired of listening to people complain and not have anything. Like, there's no, like, is that just all you're going to do for however many years? Is just complain?
Yeah.
Like, that's like, if me personally, I would not enjoy that pastime if this was the thing I like to do in my free time, watching football and watching Nebraska. And that's like, well, I think Rule sucks and there's no hope.
Suck.
And I think all the players suck. So I'm just going to complain about it for however many years until they get all new players and a new coach. And, like, listen, if that's how you like to spend your time, that's fine. I'm probably not going to live in that space. Like, sorry, I'm not. Like, there was very clear writing on the wall for me when it was over for Scott Frost, right? Like, I believed pretty early that it wasn't happening, that it wasn't getting turned around, and I was very vocal about that. But as I mentioned earlier, this is the 2 best records Nebraska's had in consecutive years in a decade. That's where this program's at. That's where this program has been. We have to get ourselves out of this mind. Like, Bo was 15 years ago, guys. Like, the best Bo teams were 15 years ago.
He also took over for Callahan, who was
the best recruiter
recruited his ass off. That man brought in talent. He didn't coach him up very well, but he brought in talent.
So, like, I don't know, like, I don't know what people want from this offseason. Like, if you're saying, hey, bring in a huge portal haul, like, let's do it. Let's get good players. I'm all, like, spend the money, write the checks, I'm in, right? If you're like, heads need to roll, guess what? They already did, man. They have rolled. They're gone, right? So all we have now to see is, okay, were the hires good? Are the transfer portal players going to be good? Who's going to come in and be quarterback? And that's it. there's nothing left. Those are the only variables, because Rule is not a variable at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Whether you like that or not, I personally still like it. I think it's good that he is not a variable. But even if you disagree with me, it doesn't change the fact that I'm right about him not being a variable. Like, that's not on the table. Sorry.
Yeah.
It just isn't. So either figure out a way to be optimistic or figure out a way to find something to be optimistic about. Or
don't be a fan. Literally, why are you being so miserable?
Hold on. Can I just make the chat?
Like, I don't know. Like, what are the options?
Ulcer? Yeah, get kidney stones. Do something bad with your life.
Let me make
rob
the chat
a store.
Do
something.
Bye,
crazy.
Josh. Have fun, bud. Have a good time,
Josh.
Josh.
Let me do this. Okay.
I hope you find something that brings you joy. I swear to God.
Rule was
I
terrible
really
with his timeouts again today. All right. I'm going to make the chat happy real quick.
Stop.
Rule was terrible with his timeouts again today. I think we can all agree on that. The play calling after the first 2 drives was sketchy. I mean, it wasn't the greatest. A lot of 3 and outs going on against a really, really good Utah defense. But whatever. We're not going to talk about that. Hold on. The offensive line was not good enough. Was not good enough. The defensive line gave up too many holes. The secondary was awful, and there was a lot of soft coverage, and they're giving up short passes and then missed tackles that led to long runs for the wide receivers. What else am I missing? You fired your defense coordinator. Your defense didn't get any better because you fired the guy who was leading them. But how terrible.
The guy hasn't started yet.
Shut up. It doesn't matter. Rule was terrible with his timeouts. Just awful. Just got awful with
the game starts in a couple hours, so he can't take those.
Can you be terrible with timeouts in a game that is not close? Like, is that even a thing? Like, you can't be terrible with timeouts when you're down 30 in the second half. You can't.
Yeah, but you got to save those.
There is no terrible use of timeouts at that point.
Now, I do want to
save those.
There's an alternate reality, and I don't care. All these people that are saying, like, if we're delusional, chat's delusional, I don't care. I'll be as dumb as I want to be right now because I believe this. Latif hits that wheel route, Mosey on the right side after that play action, and it's not 3rd and 10 or whatever. I think that he missed him. I think this is a whole different game. Truthfully, because Nebraska, he would have been gone. There was nobody there for a while. He just overshot him by a little bit, but it is what it is. So yeah, you move on.
There's a difference between being upset and constantly, like, I swear to God, and like, you guys don't live in my mentions, so it's fine. Like, you don't know this, but there are people, like, this is what I'm talking about. Carl, I'm not talking about you, that you're invested in the program and you want better for the program. I understand that. Like, and I understand being upset. Like, again, I know it doesn't seem that way because, like, I'm more upset than anybody. Like, I'm going to be talking about this 3-game stretch for the next 6 months. That's my job, right? So, like, I'm more upset about how the last 3 games have gone than anyone. But there's a difference between being upset and wanting better. Like, there's a difference between complaining and wanting solutions. I want solutions. Complaining is asking for something that is just not going to happen. That is just not even on the table. Complaining is waiting until seeing me tweet out during the second drive when Dana was in his bag, by the way.
Yes.
And waiting until the third quarter when they haven't gotten 8 yards in an entire quarter and being like, you sure about that? It's like, yeah, for that drive, he was in his bag. I was very specific. I was talking about one drive, right? That's the difference that we're talking about here. Because there are some people, and I think some of them live in the chat today, at least, not so much on the morning show. We have a good group there, but there are some people who just wait for the negative thing to happen because I swear to God, I think they enjoy complaining more than they like winning. Like that's how it seems. And if that's not the case, then I don't know what to, like, the way you represent yourselves does not give that indication. Like, I want solutions. Okay. One of the solutions that isn't on the table is getting rid of Rule. So what else is there? Let's start there. Right? Let's start with what's actually on the table. Mm-hmm. Let's transfer portal, new coaches. Like, that's where we're at. We've already taken half that equation with the new assistants. But what good does it do? Like, what good does it do to keep talking about a thing that is not feasible? Like, just not happening. Like you just want to have the receipt so you can say it in 4 years if he does get fired? Like, what are we doing? Nebraska's gone on the start over every few years treadmill for a while now. How well has that worked out? We happy with the results there? No. So what are we doing? Like, they're trying something else. They're trying something else. You may not like it, but you didn't like it before either. Neither did I. No one did. It sucked. It sucks slightly less now, so let's see what happens. Crazy? I don't think so. Like, they've got one fewer win in 2 years, the last 2 years under Rule, than they had all of Scott Frost's 4 full years. Scott Frost won 15 games in his 4 full years at Nebraska. And then he won the extra one, in that little 3-season blip that he got, or 3-game blip that he got. They've won that many games in 2 years, in half the time. So, like, I get that I get it's not enough progress. I get it's not the progress that we want. It is a better situation than it was just 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I don't know what else to tell you. And Rule's not going anywhere. So let's talk about other possible solutions.
But
the other solutions are that, luckily, now that the season is over, a national offseason champion can arrive once again. So we can look forward to that. Bang. And also in 49 hours, Nebraska basketball has its biggest game in program history that people can
Michigan
look forward
to. Carrie, that's a real question, Carrie. I appreciate that. Why do we have so many injuries? Seemed like players were maybe on hands on hips a little bit more than they should have been. Like, that's a fair question to ask, and something that could theoretically, I don't think it'll be changed. I think they really like Corey Campbell. I don't know if that's right or wrong. It's strength and conditioning is a funny topic because, like, none of us know, like, if we're honest, because we don't know what's happening in the room. Like, I did strength and conditioning for basketball teams, and I still can't really tell you. I can kind of look at indicators, but I can't tell you what they're doing. I can't tell if the injuries are directly related to their strength and conditioning practices. I really can't. But that's a fair question to ask, hey, is there an issue with why there's so many injuries, or why it looks like guys are sucking air during long drives and things like that? Totally fair question, and a thing that can be worked on. Thank you for asking. I apologize that I don't have an answer. Michael, yes, the portal is a thing that we can work on. Let's get some good players in the portal. That seems like a terrific idea. I'm all in. Let's get better players. Like, I'm here for that.
Is there a coach's portal
they just got 3 new guys. They just got them.
Is that possible?
They did. They already did the coach's portal. They shopped already.
Oh, okay.
They did their shopping. Like, that's what it is. I'm happy to hear criticism, but, like, at a certain point, if you're like, hey, I don't think Rule's doing good enough, that's fine. But what are the solutions-based conversations we can have?
Yeah, you can stand on the sidelines, cross your arms, and just be like, I don't like the result. Okay, cool.
Cool. Nobody likes the results, man. Like, that's what it is. Like, yeah, I thought they were going to go 10-2 this year. You think I like the results? You think I feel good about how this went? No. I also know they lost by 3 to Michigan. I know they lost by 3 to USC with a backup true freshman quarterback in that game. That's 20-17, wasn't it?
21.
Yeah. 21-17. My apologies. 21-17.
They would have won that game if the other guy didn't get hurt.
I agree. But, like, you sit here and you go, okay, like, that changes dramatically how we feel about that season. So I don't know, and ifs and buts and candies and nuts and whatever. Like, I get it. We'd all have a Merry Christmas, but I'd rather talk about things that can actually be changed.
Yeah. Hey,
I do think for JJ, for what it's worth, I do think they'll add some depth in the running back room. I don't know that they'll go look for a true starter, and I don't know that they need to. I know it's a 1-game sample size. I think Nelson and Mosey, like, if those are your 2 main guys going into the offseason, I'm cool.
So this is something that I've kind of had thoughts on. I see it a lot in the comment section. Lil Romeo, how do we results suddenly change with Dana still running stats offense, installing a new defense, bringing in new? I think the offense is going to change in the offseason, and I understand that, you don't have Dylan at quarterback anymore. Maybe the offense changes and you have a more mobile quarterback. You're going to run more of your offense, but just because the quarterback changes, you still have the offensive line, the running backs, the wide receivers, all of them needing to learn an entirely new offense in the middle of the season or towards the end of the season, what have you. So I think that it didn't happen after USC. It didn't happen, as this season went on. But I do believe that in this offseason, you're going to see, depending on the quarterback situation, depending on TJ Lateef, whoever they bring in from the portal, that you'll see you'll see Dana implement more of his offense, or maybe just allow his offense to flower and bloom with this offensive team, with this team on offense, just because you're not going to change an entire thing mid-season. I just don't think that would have been very smart, especially with like you've mentioned before, true freshman quarterback who has been learning this offensive scheme since he got onto campus. And then he's the starter. And you're like, by the way, everything you learned before, scrap it. We're learning something different. I think this offseason is going to go a long way in Nebraska's offense, actually looking like a Dana Holgorsen offense.
Also, for what it's worth, I don't think we saw most of the plays that Dana Holgorsen actually called this year. Like, that's I don't have any proof of that. I don't have any evidence outside of just anecdotal things. I think Dylan changed way more plays at the line of scrimmage than we'll ever know. I don't think we saw most of the especially and sequential play calling. Yeah, and I do think, Todd, you're right. I do think the offense was specifically installed for Dylan, and I don't think he was actually running a lot of the plays that were called as they were called. I think he was checking to things at the line of scrimmage way more than we realized, which even if in a vacuum that may have been an okay check, it really disrupts the sequential play calling that Dana Holgorsen is kind of known for, right? So, like, when we saw in the first couple drives Dana really get into a rhythm, that's what, like, I'm not as specific about, and DB put me on the spot last week, and totally fair to do so, about what a Dana Holgorsen offense is supposed to look like. But to me, the word is rhythm, right? Like, you need to find the rhythm, and that is all about sequential play calling. When you have a quarterback frequently changing the call at the line of scrimmage, then that completely nukes any sort of potential you have for rhythm. And so I think you're right. I don't think we saw Dana Holgorsen's offense this year. We're also not going to see what we saw last year because Dylan Raiola is gone. I think that's part of the reason that the sides chose to part ways, was because of kind of how things were going in that department. And I think it's a highly positive thing that whoever takes snaps at quarterback next year will not have the leeway that Dylan Raiola had the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's like a whiplash. Big not positive. Quite my tempo. Not quite.
Yeah. Are you rushing or dragging? Rushing or dragging?
I don't know.
Are you just guessing?
Yes.
No.
I am.
I'm rushing.
Yeah.
All right, Ravi. What else is on? Do you have anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, I think I'm okay on the game. I think I'm all right. Like, it sucked. Like, that was one of the longest second halves I've ever watched. Like, yeah, it was all like, it was just,
the amount of times Nebraska was inside of its own 15 was also embarrassing. But
yeah, not great. It was terrible to watch.
I do want to say that the use of tight ends by Utah, I think Nebraska just take that and just throw that in the playbook, please and thank you.
Yeah,
because Luke Lindenmeyer, what did he have? 1 catch today?
Yes,
and he broke like 2 tackles. I need him to have the ball in his hands more, please and thank you.
Phenomenal. It was phenomenal play calling, and that's what Utah does. That's what, like, they're really, really good at this. I think his name is Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, from New Mexico.
Who was Devin Dampier's operator at New Mexico, to somebody's, I think, Austin, was your point about consistency in terms of players being under the same assistants for multiple years. Like, I think that has a lot to do with why they had such a good kind of shorthand as to how they played that game. But, like, he's really good at what he does. Like, that guy's going to get a head coaching job pretty soon because of what he does.
Yeah, and listen, Jason Beck runs a great 2016 Carolina Panther offense, because I've seen those quarterback powers many times. And every time, like, I was like, Dampier kind of a little bit, right? Like, he's a little.
Austin was sitting there like, wait,
Cam. Like, he's kind of a little Cam.
Wait a minute.
Like an actual little Cam.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Miniature Cam, yes.
was
Well, because Cam was a
enormous.
freak. But
Yeah,
Dampier looked pretty big.
And
though.
listen, I mean, that's the other part of it too. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty of this game as well, when Nebraska's defense was making mistakes and not getting off the field and all that other stuff too, they didn't put themselves in positions to make plays or game-changing plays like creating turnovers or doing anything like that. And Utah didn't really give them any opportunities to do that in any sense. So, I mean, yeah.
I agree there that they didn't do that. I don't think the offense – I mean, Javen Wright had an opportunity to intercept that ball at the goal line. That would have been – like that's the type of play Nebraska has to make. And if they have to go into the portal to find guys that will make those plays, I'm totally okay with that. Like I totally understand that. I think that Nebraska defense – that's the thing I think that frustrated me the most about Nebraska's defense this year was I was aware that there was going – like, I didn't think they would be as solid as they had been under Tony White the last couple of years, but the way they were described and with the pieces they had, I thought they'd be much more disruptive. And they weren't. They were not disruptive in any way whatsoever. Like, they were about as, like, disruptive as white noise. Like, they were just kind of there. And so that's probably my single biggest frustration with this defense is at a certain point, there were no turnovers. There was no pressure. There was no sacks. Like, there was just nothing. I can live with, like, hey, every once in a while you miss a run fit or somebody gets behind you or whatever, if there is the other stuff. That's what I thought this defense would be this year, was a little bit more disruptive plays, not quite as solid as it had been in the past, and it was neither of those things, right? That's why your defensive coordinator gets fired. But, like, I think it's less about Utah not giving them opportunities and Nebraska not having the guys, at least in the positions, to create those opportunities. Like, I think it's more about like creating that for yourself. And a lot of that starts up front with, somebody said, build up the lines and then add a few pieces around them. Yeah. Like let's go get every single one of those South Carolina and Georgia Tech offensive linemen in the portal. Let's go get them.
Build from the middle out.
Fight it out amongst the guys that are here and the guys you bring in and just see what happens. Right? Like, I'm fine with that. Like, there's nobody on this team right now. As much as I like certain guys, there's not a person on this team right now that I'd say, oh, you can't bring in competition at his spot. No.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Bring in everybody.
Hold on.
Bring in everybody.
Yeah.
And just let them fight.
There's quite literally not a position on the field right now for Nebraska where you have hey, this is your spot no matter what. Hey, no matter who comes in, because no one is an All-American. No one is all Big Ten coming back. No one is any of that level of stature. You have guys on the roster. Again, I said this earlier. You have guys on the roster who I would be disappointed to see not return. And, like, I'll name it. Like, Ja'Cory Barney's been rumored quite a bit, right? Like, I would be disappointed to see Ja'Cory Barney leave. But even if Ja'Cory Barney left, there would be other guys that Nebraska
come on down, baby. Let's do it.
Yes.
Like, there is no one on this team that has been so good. And I even felt this way about Dylan. And I was obviously very pro Dylan during the season. I thought he was playing better than he was getting credit for. And I also thought it was weird that guys that were playing worse than him were getting more credit. But I also thought that he brought issues. Like, there's issues that he brought to the table as well. And I'm going to be honest with you, Randy, you don't need a new tight ends coach because that's the reason you're going to get him out Hudson. Like, Satterfield's the reason you're going to get him out Hudson. So
don't touch that spot.
If you want to get rid of Satterfield, say goodbye to your 5-star tight end. Like, I'm just saying, like, say goodbye to Mac Markway probably as well. Like, I get that he was injured, but like,
I also think the tight ends are good, and when they get the ball, they produce. When they're blocking, they're really good. But they don't get the ball, and that's not on the tight ends coach. The tight ends coach can't go to the offensive coordinator and be like, "Hey, throw my guy the ball." Like, he coaches him up. He has him doing everything the right way, which they have been. They just don't get the ball. Just part of the offense.
Like, whatever you feel about
I think they should get it more, but that's not on him.
I agree. But you're right. Every time they do get the ball, it seems like they execute. Like, however you feel about Satterfield as an offensive coordinator, like, I don't think there's a lot of dispute. He's very good as a tight ends coach. Like, and recruits seem to really, really respond to him. And seems like a pretty good chance you're getting the best tight end in the country in 2027, and in no small part because of Marcus Satterfield. So if you want to fire him, Randy, the tight ends coach doesn't call the plays, buddy.
He also doesn't throw the ball.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't call the plays. Like,
because Dana's calling plays where the tight ends are running routes that that Trey or Dylan, I mean, early in the season, they were finding the tight ends on the dump offs, but later in the season, they just weren't. They weren't looking for the tight ends. They were looking deep. They were looking at Emmett Johnson. I don't know why they're not getting the ball. They're just not getting thrown the ball.
I'm not mad at the kill shorts that Isaiah Hunter only had like one reception in the last couple of games. Like that's like, I think Isaiah Hunter is good. I think DeKel Shorts has done a good job. Like, I don't think it has nothing to like, those two things are not related. That's
like the
point.
Position coaches have done a good job at coaching their guys up. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
At least for wide receivers, tight ends. I don't know.
So, but yeah, I think I don't think there's a spot on this roster that I would look at and say, can't bring in competition there. Like Nebraska's at the point where you want every good player you can get your hands on. And there's guys I don't think would lose their job. Like, I don't think I bet Justin Evans is probably starting next year. I bet Elijah Pritchett's probably starting next year. But there's not like, if you're like, hey, yeah, we can bring in 6 offensive linemen, cool, do it. Like, these guys all started in the SEC or at winning ACC programs last year. Absolutely, bring them all in. Bring every single one of them in. Like, Nebraska's not at a point where you can be choosy about the talent. Go get all the talent you can find and then go from there. And when I say talent, I include kind of their mentality. Because like that, I think is a big thing. And I agree. Like, you have to have a certain type of mentality to play the way that Rule wants you to play, that the way Nebraskans, frankly, want this team to play. Like, you have to have a certain mentality. And I think you have to have a certain mentality to deal with the expectations of being a Nebraska football player. And so when I say talent, mentality and makeup is definitely a part of that. But bring in all the talent you can find and sort it. Let the position group battles sort themselves out, and you go from there. Because that's the only way. That's the only way up. I think that's the only way up. I agree, Logan. Give Rule the time Hoiberg was afforded. That seems to be working out well for Nebraska basketball.
Good place to end.
I think it's a great place to end. And
yeah,
let's go pack the vault. It's the second, right? They play the second, Michigan
Friday.
State?
Yes. Big one.
Friday. Pack the vault. Make it loud. Make it a hellish place for Tom Izzo and company to play.
Watch it on Peacock.
Yeah.
Watch it on Peacock. If you don't have Peacock, Hurrdat Sports Bar has Peacock.
Bang.
Oh. You can also go to Hurrdat Sports Bar. What's today? Wednesday? Tomorrow. Because the 20th ranked Nebraska women are traveling to number 14 Iowa to play the Hawkeyes.
Whoa.
On BTN. Another top 25
Well,
battle.
Unfortunately, your haircut has doomed them once again. So
can you not? It's not my fault. That's a bad place to end.
I think it might be a little bit your fault.
There's that smile we've been looking for, Ravi.
How's it my fault?
I don't know. It makes me feel.
What did I do?
You got your
in 2026, no haircuts, no losses. Rico.
Yeah,
it's not happening. I'm cut. Can I? Okay, no haircut. Can I at least trim this? Is this part of it?
I think you can trim the beard. I think we've narrowed it down to the.
To just up here
to the top of the head.
Okay, I almost said a bad word, Austin.
Don't work on the radio.
Your kids might be watching.
And they could be watching,
waiting for us to get done.
All right, let's wrap this up. So this is Hail Varsity Postgame. Ravi, Rico, myself, Austin. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in now for 13 games of Hail Varsity Postgame, whether it was me and Ravi, Rico, Ravi, whatever combination you deserve. This actually started in a garage for me in Kansas City. And it's ending in the construction zone of the Hurrdat Sports office. So no better place.
There you go.
There's no better place in the world for me. So
no other place I'd rather be. No, thank you guys for joining me all year on these. I appreciate it. I know it's time out of your days and nights that you don't have to give, so I appreciate that. And I know I yell at you guys. It's out of love. Not you guys, the listeners. I know I yell sometimes. It's out of love. I appreciate I appreciate most of you. I'll be honest. There's a couple I don't appreciate. I won't name names though.
But what a way to end the year. What a way.
90. Listen,
name your
I'm not a liar. Like, I'm not going to pretend like there's not some people that I'm like, yeah, if they didn't chime in anymore, I'd be okay. But I like 98% of the chat is I'm incredibly grateful for. and I think really understands what we're trying to do here and appreciates what we're trying to do here. I did just want to say one thing, and we can end here, is as you know, everybody does resolutions for New Year's and things like that. And I know for a lot of people, 2025 was kind of a tough year, so they get a little reflective on New Year's Eve and things like that. And I was watching this video that was talking about people who are going through hard times, and talking about a lot of times they'll reach out to someone pretty innocuously, right? And it'll just be like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on? You have a minute to chat or whatever." And a lot of times it doesn't come off as anything particularly pressing or important, but a lot of times that's people reaching out because they're like in distress and really struggling. And this study found out that it only takes 8 minutes from a friend to make those people feel like they're not alone in their situation anymore. And as heated as we get on these shows sometimes, I know for a fact when I've been on the other side of it that sports talk has been my 8 minutes some days. You know, whether it's going through a divorce, whether it's going through mental health challenges, family stuff, whatever. There's been days where I go into work and throw in the headphones and like Chicken Nick or Damon before I worked with him, or Scott Van Pelt, Dan Patrick, a lot of these guys, like those were my 8 minutes, even though I didn't even know those guys. And so I am incredibly grateful, because a lot of you have reached out to me over the course of the last couple of years that we've been doing this, that every once in a while we're your 8 minutes. That is something that I take very, very seriously. That's part of the reason I don't like to miss days. Part of it's because I'm paranoid, but I also understand that for some people, like that's the 8 minutes that's going to make them feel better today and make them be able to get on to their next thing. So incredibly grateful that you put that kind of faith and trust in us. And maybe for some of you, it's just a couple of idiots talking about sports and other food storage techniques and things like that. And that's totally cool too. And I love that. But I do know for some of you that like we're the 8 minutes that help your day not be a disaster, and that help you in that kind of challenging place mentally and emotionally. So I'll keep being there. I'll keep being your 8 minutes, and you just keep tuning in, and we'll try and make your days a little bit better. That's kind of what I've been reflecting on as 2025 comes to an end. So appreciate you guys, Rico and Austin. Appreciate you guys, listeners, as well. We love you all dearly. Tell your people you love them. Don't make them weird, or absolutely make it weird. Like it doesn't matter. They'll appreciate it even if they don't know how to take it in the moment. So that's all I got. That's 2025 for Hail Varsity Postgame and for Hurrdat Sports Live. We will see you in 2026.